Wide-angle lenses do not distort faces if you use them correctly, and they're awesome for people pictures. Alright, I'm going to settle this once and for all. So many photographers are giving people the wrong idea when they say wide-angle lenses distort the face compared to telephotos. What they do is they move the camera forward and back until they get the same cropping for each lens. And of course, the wide-angle lens makes the face look funny. And that's what pisses me off, because any photographer who knows what he's doing, who's worth anything, knows not to use a wide-angle lens to do a head and shoulders shot. Yes, of course, if you go right up to the person's face, it's going to be all distorted. But nobody does this. That's not what these things are for. Using a wide-angle lens for a head and shoulder shot is like using a dishwasher to do your laundry. That's not what these things are for. They are designed to do landscape shots, environment shots, street photography, where you want to show the world, the environment. And yes, you can have a person in there, but the person is not supposed to be filling the shot. Look at these two shots. One is a 50mm and one's a wide angle. Which one do you think's the wide angle? It's actually this one. The face isn't distorted because the camera wasn't that close. Every shot you see here was done with a wide-angle lens. Does her face look distorted? No. That's because she's not that big in the shot. But yet she's still the center of attention. That's what wide-angle lenses are for, to show a person within a world. And I would say half the shots that I have taken through the years were done with a 35, which is considered a wide-angle lens. As long as the person is near the middle of the shot and they're not that big, you're going to get a perfect face that's not distorted. It's one of the most perfect lenses to use when you're doing photography of a person in a beautiful location. Now, when I say 35, 50, 85, I mean full frame, obviously. Okay, so the proper way to use a 35 and to compare it with other lenses is to not be like this, but to be like this. So let's start with a real wide-angle lens, a 16mm. When you bring the camera close to get the same composition as the other shots, yeah, the face is distorted. But when you take it back to show the whole environment, and then you crop in, notice the difference. It's not that distorted. So when you see photography channels comparing the shots side by side and they've moved the camera to frame it exactly the same, nobody ever uses a wide-angle lens up close like that. That is just wrong. And it gives people the wrong idea. And that takes us to the most popular lens of all, and that is the 50mm. People think that's a boring lens because it's everywhere. Everybody has it. It's the standard starting lens. Well, the reason it's so popular because that is the most non-distorting, perfect everything lens, and my most favorite lens of all in the whole world, if I only could have one lens, is the 55 1.8 by Sony. This one is the all-purpose everything lens. It doesn't distort. Everything is just beautiful no matter what you do. I can even do an ultra close-up, and they all look great. If you're ever only going to use one lens for anything, this one is my most favorite lens ever of all of them. All right, so now we move on to what people call the most popular portrait lens, the 85. This one is the opposite of a 35 because it takes the attention away from the background and puts it on the person in the foreground. This is really helpful for people who are in locations that are not that beautiful and they want to put more emphasis on the person. I use it sometimes. I get great stuff with it, but personally, I really like the 55 a lot more because it's a lot more flexible and I can do more with it. All right, so that was the 85. So now let's move on to the 135. This is also a great portrait lens, but of course now you got to step back even further. It also doesn't distort very much, but this is kind of the limit. Anything beyond 135, now you get into weird territory. All right, now on to the famous 200. People like this because it looks manly, but as far as portraits go, something weird starts to happen. For some reason, the face starts to look wider. What's interesting is when I did videos of her in the shot with the 200, people were leaving comments saying, I can tell Kara's had work done. She's had fillers and Botox. And I'm going, we didn't do anything. Why are they saying that? Well, that's because the 200 compresses. In other words, there's no depth between the nose and the cheeks and the background. Everything is squished. It's almost like you stepped on someone's face and just flattened it into just a flat surface and then squished that onto the background. So there's no more separation between the nose and the face and the cheeks and the hair and the background. Everything's just squished together and it makes it look totally flat, which makes it look wider. especially when you have glamour lighting like this. Now it looks really, really flat looking. Here's some examples of videos where I was using a 200, and look at her face. Look how wide it looks. It's just the lighting and the lens is what gives this illusion. Now, one way around this is if you really want to use a 200, then you should change the lighting. This type of lighting is good if you're doing a normal lens like a 50 or a wider lens like a 35, but it's not good for the longer lenses. For longer lenses, you need more contouring lights, which is good for younger people, or if you're in your 20s or 30s, but when you're in your 50s and 60s, like Kara and me, then sometimes this is not the best choice for that. But this is what young YouTubers like. They like the light on one side and dark on the other. If you're okay with that lighting, then you can use longer lenses. So you're getting contouring from the lighting, but the face is still compressed. So it still gives it that flat, widened look. So even when you're using a 25 or even a 16 millimeter, a person can still look good if they're in the middle of the shot and they're not that big. If you do everything right, you just see very little difference in the face. The only difference you would see is in the background. And that's what these lenses were designed for, to show the person in the world that they're in. So that's what I wanted to clear up here, because these people that keep showing, oh, this is what it looks like. Look how the face is all distorted when you put it on. Yeah, that's why. And that's not fair to the lens. I use wide angle lenses a lot with a person in it, and it looks great. And the person is not distorted. So I just didn't want you to get the wrong message from a lot of these videos that people are putting out comparing the lenses, because they should be compared in the real world scenario, not just how they frame in composition directly with the camera. That's not the real world. I show you what happens in the real world. I hope you get something out of this, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.